Hi everybody, how you doing? I'm Kurt and this is Axtreme-Guitar. I'm here to show you a new riff that I put together. It's something that you could do if you were a beginner with some experience, and it's going to use some slide, some bending, vibrato, and some pull-offs and hammer-ons, but more pull-offs and hammer-ons really. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible, but it's going to touch on each of these things throughout it. And what I'll do is I'll include a PDF of some sort that will show you the tablature of how to do that. And by this point, I am expecting that you can at least read tablature so you can understand where to go on the frets. I'm looking over at the corner over here of what I have for tablatures, just so I know exactly what I'm dealing with. You don't have to worry about reading theory, the little squiggly notes and the rests and so on. It's simplified in the PDF so that you have the tablature. You do have tablature on the bottom, and then there's a treble clef up top. That's the treble clef is where you have the notes that you would typically see for reading music. So first off, going through this assortment of licks, is we're going to be primarily working in the G pattern of the C major pentatonic. So the C major pentatonic G pattern is going to start on the 5th fret, and this is how it sounds. So that's what we're going to do is start off with the first part of this assortment. So it seems short and real simple. It may be actually a little tricky as you do it, because you're going to start right here on the 5th fret of the A string with your ring finger, and you're going to slide, and then it puts you into position to do the rest of the G pattern if you were improvising. But in this situation, we're going to be sliding and then climbing up the pattern just a little bit, and then we bar our pointer finger across the G and the B string. What I'm doing here is I am actually, and this is what I do a lot of times, I actually figured it out over time for myself, is I mute the low E string here, and I say low E string, I mean the first string down here. I'll mute that by just kind of having at least one finger on it, and when I'm playing, I will, for instance, all right, so let me start over. Starting over from the top, I'm going to slide, and now here is where I have the E string blocked so I don't hear it, and I'm on the 7th fret of the D string, and I'm barring the G and the B string on the 5th fret. Now in the tablature, it's going to look like this. Now I don't just hit those two notes. I'm actually going to pull downward just a little bit. I'm going to overemphasize it so you can see this, but I do a slight bend. It's not a huge full bend. It's just a slight bend. So it's, and you know what? I'm going to turn off my delay because it automatically turns on whenever I play my guitar. Now that I have it with no delay, you'll hear it as it should sound just the way that you might have it sounding. So you see that I put more emphasis on that bend there to let the notes hang a little bit longer. This is really kind of a bluesy lick here. So I slide, climb, bend, and then I land on the 7th fret of the D string with my ring finger here, and that happens to be an A note. This whole lick is really based around, it's emphasizing the A minor chord, but specifically the A note. There's this A note, the root note, and this one, as well as this one. So you'll notice that those are good places to land whenever you're maybe ending a riff that you're working on. We can go further into that in other videos, but for now, just keep that kind of as a side note for yourself. But as I was saying, I slide and then I bend. So let's see that again. Slide, climb, slide, bend, landing. And I do this vibrato. You see how my hand is shaking just a little bit like this. It's not a full bend. It's just a little bit of a bend back and forth. You don't want to go too much, not like a, just a little bit of a bend back and forth. Now if you needed to, you can put a, well, I'm using my ring finger on the 7th fret, but if you needed to, you can use your middle finger right behind it on the 6th fret of the same string. You're not going to be on a different string. On the same string, the D string, 7th fret on the D string, and then put your middle finger right behind it on the 6th fret, and even if you wanted to put your pointer finger on the 5th fret. You just don't want to overemphasize the vibrate. It's just simply vibrato that kind of ornaments the note. So again, from the top, we're doing this. Now, you want to keep getting through that. It's going to be a little tricky at first because you don't have it memorized, but there's not a lot to it, so it shouldn't be too hard to memorize what to do. I didn't say it's going to be easy to be able to play it, but knowing where your fingers should go and understanding what you need to do, that's a whole different story. You can understand it, you can see it, you can work it. Working toward playing it the way you want to hear it, that's a different thing. If you keep practicing at it, you can get exactly what you want to get. Now, it's not a fast riff. You don't need to play it fast. It's meant to be something for, well, emotive, something that is like bluesy. So that's the first riff. Now we can look at the second riff. Now, the way I have it set up in the PDF, they're all on the same PDF. I just have a few rests, and then you can get to the next riff. And what you will see in the next riff is that you're going to be right on this string here. This is the 7th fret of the G string, and what we're going to do, and like I had explained before, when you're doing the vibrato, where you can have your middle finger and even your pointer finger behind it on the same string to help with the vibrato, you're really going to want to focus on that for bending this string. It says on the PDF the word full. There's a line going upward from the 7, that's the 7th fret of the G string, and it says full, so it means it's a full bend. So what I'm doing here is I'm bending the string, and I'm going to bring it to this note here. It's what you're doing when you're doing a full bend. You're going from here and bringing it to here. So Now, if you're new to bending, this is not going to be an easy thing for you to do right off the bat. It's going to take some time to get used to keeping your finger pressing down enough, and you're pushing the string up, but you're not going to loosen anything with your main finger here. This is my ring finger, which is what I suggest you use. It's really the only finger that you should be using in this particular sequence here that we're working on this riff. You're going to bend the note, and you can use your middle finger here right behind it on the 6th fret to help push it up. But you don't want to push it too far. You want to reach, you want to just sometimes check 2 frets from here is the full bend. So the 7th fret, when you bend it, is going to match the 9th fret. And you're going to just bend it like that. Now the next part of this riff here, it's a tricky riff. It's something that actually, just for some, I guess you could call it historical background, Chuck Berry was famous for this one here, where he would do this riff in Johnny B. Good and probably a lot of other songs. I'm not that familiar with Chuck Berry, but Johnny B. Good was a very familiar one, and he would do this riff. So it sounds nice, and it's not as hard as you may think it will be, but it takes some getting used to. So the next part, after you've bent the string, is you're barring. And when I say barring, I mean you're putting your finger across the last 2 strings here. You can refer to barring as going across the whole fretboard to do a bar chord, for instance. But in this case, we're just talking about the E and the B string over here. So I'm going to bar the E and the B string on the 5th fret, and my ring finger is going to be on the 3rd string, the G string, with my middle finger behind it to help bend it. Now, this is going to be tricky for newer guitarists, because all you're going to be thinking about is, I need to bend this, but you're going to bend all of the strings, and that's just not going to work. You have to teach yourself to just bend the 1 string and then hit the next 2. And it's okay if you actually hit all 3 strings. It's not going to be an easy thing to do at first, especially if you're newer to this. And what I am doing when I'm doing this is I hit the 1st string. This is my style. I'll hit the 1st string, and I'll upstroke the bottom 2. Now you may have noticed it when I was playing it faster. I was doing this up and down stroke. That's what I do when I play this riff. I'll bend the note, and you can hit all 3 at that point. It's just bend, up, down. So again, we're going to bend. You want to reach that note there. That's the target note with the bend. So we're going from a D to an E. So I'm taking this D note and going to an E, right like this. I just matched it up with the E note up top here. So we bend it, and then we upstroke, downstroke. Now that's part of how the this riff looks. Now if I do the whole riff by itself, just so you hear how it sounds, it's, let me make sure I don't get it wrong. So. I'll do that one more time. we have that vibrato again. So the main point of this riff is you're doing that bend with those 2 barred notes on the 5th fret. And then from there you release the bend and you come right to the 5th fret on the G string, and you bend a full bend, but you come back down to the 5th fret. So, and you land on the 7th fret of the D string, just like you did on the first riff. So this is a full bend with a full release, and then you can pull off and then land on that 7th with a little vibrato. Now the next step is the 3rd riff in this exercise, and this one will use the pull-offs. So what we're doing is, after you've done the you have a rest, and then we go right to the very back, the last string of the G pattern. As a reminder, you have the G pattern. So we're here starting on the 8th fret of the G pattern, and we're going to pull off. Now I'll do that again. Now this one isn't quite as bad, but what you're going to do when you're doing a pull-off is you pluck the string, and then you're literally going to keep this pointer finger, let's first off say, keep this pointer finger on the 5th fret, do not move it. Leave it planted there. And you're going to pick that one, and what you do is pull it. You're literally pulling it, kind of pulling your finger off the string, not too hard, but enough that you can pull it downward. And you don't have to pick it again. You just, because you're pulling off. Now I'm going to silence the other strings here. When you're pulling off, my finger literally is pulling downward this way. And that's what you do with a pull-off. So this riff is just, and in the PDF you'll see a P with, well, it looks kind of like a parenthesis sign going from the 8 to the 5. That's 8 to 5. And each time that you have a pull-off, you can do that pull-off. There's the P over it on the PDF. So we have, and then here we go 8 on the B string, and back to the 5th, and then down to the 5th fret on the B string, and then pull off. So one time, I tend to upstroke this one, but it's a pull off, so you're not hitting it twice. Let me try that again. Because I'm moving so slowly, I accidentally fretted the 5th fret of the E string there. So let's do that again. So back to the very first string. So now I'm down to the 7th fret of the G string, and then I come back to the 5th, and then to the 7th fret again on the G string, and then down to the 5th, and then land on that 7th fret on the D string with another vibrato. So again, get a good, try to get a good angle on this. So pull off, and then back and forth, and then 5th fret, pull off, and then back and forth, vibrato. That's the landing. hopefully that is helpful to you so that you can learn these riffs. Now I'll go through them one at a time without any kind of breaks. So we have the first one. Now, you don't have to go that fast. You can take it at any tempo that you want to. It's actually more important that you're playing something slowly. I've heard all of the major guitar players that are, you hear them on the radio or you hear them in concert, the greats. And they actually say the most important thing is to be able to play it slow. If you can play it slow without any mistakes, speed is not going to be a problem. I mean, obviously, depending on how fast you're trying to go with it, but not everything needs to be super fast. But for the most part, if you're looking to get a comfortable tempo, like something you would hear in a song off of the radio, practice it slowly. And then if you happen to have a metronome, you can find them online if you don't have one, and just set the metronome to a certain pace. You can get yourself acclimated to playing to the metronome and get even better at doing what you're doing. Off the top of my head, I would say maybe try starting out with this riff or these riffs, this entire exercise, working at a pace of about 80 beats per minute. And if you have to go slower than that, then by all means go by what works for you. And if you find that it's getting easier and easier, especially as you memorize these different riffs, then you can start to speed it up. Maybe, for example, one of the things that I tend to do when I'm playing my riffs is as I start to memorize it, as I get more comfortable with it, I'll set it so that I can start to play it 5 beats per minute more each time I go through it. Of course, I'm using Guitar Pro as my helpful software to do this, but you can do it even by hand. It doesn't matter. You could just, every time you're doing it, move it up just a little bit and try it some more, but just be sure that you are that you're getting it perfectly. You don't want to have any mistakes, because if you're practicing with mistakes, all you're doing is reinforcing that you're going to play it faster with mistakes. So do the best you can at a comfortable speed and then move forward from there.